In today's video, we are diving into one of the most common and tricky question types on the digital SAT reading section, that is central idea questions. This is one of the biggest challenges students face, trying to identify the passage's core message without getting sidetracked by minor details. But don't worry, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to approach these questions with a foolproof strategy. I will break down the key steps, show you what traps to avoid, and walk you through some real SAT examples. So let us get started. Now, what is central idea? When it comes to this particular topic, you're basically looking for a topic that's discussed everywhere in the text, right? So whichever correct option you pick up for this question type should be something that covers up the whole text. Now you can think of it like an umbrella. Right? So whichever option you pick up will be treated like an umbrella, which will cover all the details in an overall manner in that particular option. Which again means that we are not supposed to focus a lot on all the tiny details given to us in the text. We are supposed to look at the bigger picture. Now with this, let's understand what are the different kinds of question stems you can come across for this type. Or let's say, how can you identify that you're dealing with a central idea question type? Which choice best states the main idea? So mention of main idea should tell you this is the central idea question type. What is the main idea of the text? Again, central idea of the text. Which choice best describes the main idea of the text? So basically, the term central idea can also be used as main idea in the question stem. And this should tell you that this is a central idea question type. Now that you've understood how to identify this question type, let's understand the approach that you need to take up for this particular type. Now this is a 5-step strategy approach. The first step will always remain the same, that is, you will read the question stem to understand that you're dealing with central idea question type, and then you will go ahead and read the text. Now when you're reading the text for this question type, you're supposed to focus on the overall picture, not the tiny details. So there is a specific reading technique that you need to follow in order to really get your correct option. We will be seeing this particular technique in details when we take up the easy, medium, difficult level questions later in the video. Once you're done reading, you have to identify that one main topic of the text, something that's been discussed everywhere in the text, that one or two words that you can see everywhere in the text. Now, what about that main topic is being discussed? You have to identify that in the 4th step. Now this is not a compulsion. You can always, you can know that the text is talking about X, and then you can try and identify that what is it about X that it's discussing in an overall manner, but you don't really need to have a very exact answer to this question, because you will always go to the option elimination stage to get the correct option. This is where you will start eliminating your options. You'll start eliminating all the detailed options that you get, which is not covering up the whole text and things like this. So this 4th step is not a compulsion. You can always try to answer what about the main topic is being discussed, but if you don't get an answer to this, don't panic, just move on to the option elimination stage. Now with this, we will take up one question which will be of an easy difficulty level. We have already seen the 5 steps that we need to take, but how to implement these 5 steps is something that we'll be seeing later in the video. Okay, so we have the first question on central idea. The difficulty level of this question is easy. Now, the first step is always the same, that is read the question stem. Now you know you're dealing with a central idea question type looking at this phrase main idea. The second step is we will be reading the text. Now, how are we going to read the text? We are supposed to read the text in such a manner that we don't get lost in all the details that's been given to us. We have to take away the major details or some important aspects from each sentence and create an overall picture. So don't get lost into the details. This is the blurb which we should always read. We will never ignore a blurb. Let's read this. The following text is adapted from J.S.'s 1881 novel H. So this particular text is from a novel, that is H. 8-year-old H and her friend's grandmother are looking at some illustrated books. So who am I supposed to expect in this text? We should expect the text to talk about an 8-year-old H and her friend's grandmother. So grandmother and this kid. Now what is happening over here? They are basically just looking at some illustrated books. Let's read the text to know more. H had come and was looking with wondering eyes at the splendid pictures in the large books that grandmama was showing her. So this grandma was showing some book to H, and she was really, very intrigued by what she's seeing. She had these wondering eyes, splendid pictures, so everything good, right? So she liked whatever she's seeing. Suddenly she screamed aloud, for there on the picture she saw a peaceful flocking grazing on a green pasture. So basically she screamed aloud out of excitement, right? Because she saw something amusing again, right? Let's read ahead. In the middle, a shepherd was standing, leaning on his crook. So this is just an explanation of what that image was. That image that she was looking at, that picture she was looking at, and it's an explanation of what that picture consisted of. So I don't really have to get into the detail of it. It's just an explanation of that picture. The setting sun was shedding a golden light over everything. Again, an explanation of that picture. With glowing eyes, H devoured the scene. So this particular image she's looking at, she's liking it because she has these glowing eyes. There's an explanation of that particular image. Right, overall, I can say something that's been constantly discussed in this particular text is H looking at that particular image which intrigued her, because of which she had glowing eyes, right? This is basically what I understand. And if you notice, the tone of the whole text is very positive, right? She's liking whatever she's seeing. Grandma is showing a picture and she's liking everything that she sees, right? Now, with this understanding, we are going to go ahead and eliminate our options. Here, I want you to focus on how I'm eliminating the options, or the reasons that is leading me to eliminating the options. Let's look at A first. H is upset. Okay, now stop here. I don't have to read ahead. You know why? Because where in the text did we identify H being upset? Nowhere, right? I mean, the whole text was very positive. She's liking whatever she's seeing. So this word upset is just making this option wrong because this is contradictory to the text. This is one reason how you can eliminate options in central idea. Something that's contradicting the text. As simple as that. Now for this, I don't really have to read ahead, right? Understand how much to read in order to identify whether you can eliminate the option or not. Read very mindfully. Stop at that particular word wherever you feel something is going wrong, and then analyze. So here, as soon as I started reading, the very third word that I saw was upset, and it was clearly contradicting the text. So I will eliminate this. Let's look at B. H is delighted and fascinated by an image she sees in one of grandmama's books. She is indeed delighted. She is indeed fascinated by that image that she saw, and then she screamed aloud. Correct? So I could not find anything wrong in choice B, so I will hold on to it and try and eliminate C and D. Let's look at C. H is initially frightened by an image. Stop. She wasn't frightened by anything. She screamed aloud out of fascination. There was nothing negative about her and the image in the text. So she wasn't frightened by anything as such. This is again out because it is contradicting the text. So contradictory option eliminated. Let's look at D. H is inspecting an image in one of grandma's books. Because she has never seen a shepherd with his sheep before. I do remember seeing this mention of a shepherd in that particular image, but do I know if she has seen a shepherd earlier or not? Nothing about that has been stated to me in the text. Right? I mean, she's definitely inspecting an image. She's looking at that image. Right? Everything was fine till here. I could have still said that, okay, it sounds fine. But later as I start reading, I mean, where is this part coming from? She has never seen a shepherd. That was never told to me in the text. Also, even if it was mentioned in some way in the text, it doesn't mean that it has to be correct option just because it's been mentioned in the text. Remember, this is a central idea question. I have to look at an option which covers up the whole text, not one particular detail that's been given to me in the text. With this reasoning, I can eliminate this option because this is out of scope. This is not even discussed in the text, right? So now I'm sure you understand how you could eliminate your options. What can the traps be? You can eliminate your option because it's simply contradicting the text. You can eliminate an option because it's not even being talked about in the text. Right? With this, we have the correct option, that is choice B, and we'll be moving on to a higher difficulty level, a medium difficulty level question. Alright, so now we have a medium difficulty level question on central idea. Read the question stem to know which question type that you're dealing with. It says main idea, so this is a central idea question type. The second step is we will read the text. Let's read the text now. Believing that living in an impractical space can heighten awareness and even improve health. Stop here. Now, what are they believing? Whoever is believing in this, what are they really believing in? They believe in living in an impractical space and this having positive benefits, heighten awareness, and improve health. So, living in an impractical space can have positive effects. Conceptual artist M&S designed an apartment building in Japan to be more fanciful than functional. So these are the people who believe in this, right? So M&S, they believe that if you live in an impractical space, it can have positive impacts or positive effects. And because they have this concept, they believe in this, they have designed an apartment building in Japan, which is fancy but not functional. So what do I take away from this sentence? What I can take away from this sentence is what these people believe in. M&S, they believe that if you live in an impractical space, you will have positive effects, right? Let's read ahead. A kitchen counter is chest high on one side and knee high on the other. A ceiling has a door to nowhere. This is basically an explanation of how that space is impractical, right? The effect is disorienting but invigorating. After 4 years there, filmmaker Nobu reported significant health benefits. Now, this particular person, Nobu, is further affirming that okay, if you live in an impractical space, you can have positive impacts because this person reported health benefits. This person lived there for 4 years and this person reported significant health benefits. This is just a confirmation of how living in an impractical space can be difficult, but it has positive impacts. Now, with this understanding, let's try to understand what is the topic of the text. The topic of the text is impractical space. What about the impractical space are they talking about? They are saying that if you live there, it can be a little problematic, but you will see positive effects. With this understanding, let's go ahead and eliminate our options. A. Now, if you look at all the options, they are again very lengthy. So let's try to break them down and see till where we can read and try and eliminate. Let's look at A. Although inhabiting a home surrounded by fanciful features such as those designed by Jins and A can be rejuvenating. So I could not find anything wrong here, honestly, right? I mean, the text is talking about the home having fanciful features, right, which was designed by Jins and A. It can be rejuvenating. It is unsustainable. It says rejuvenating in the sense that it can have positive impacts, but it is unsustainable. Now, the problem is with this word unsustainable. How do I know if this is unsustainable? How do I know if you can live there for a longer time or for a shorter time? The text does not tell me anything about it. It's simply telling me that the space is not functional, it's fanciful, but can you stay in a fanciful place for a longer time or not is something that's not been answered in the text. So I will have to eliminate this option. This is simply out of context. It is something that's not been discussed in the text. The text is all about the positive benefits of living in an impractical space. That's what the text is about. Let's look at B. Designing disorienting spaces like those in the Jins and A building is the most effective way. Now stop here. It uses a very extreme word, that is most. Always be very careful with these extreme words that you come across in the options. Most, never, any, all. These are very extreme words. Now, what is it saying? It's saying that this is the most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. How do I know that this is the most effective way? What if there are more ways available, but it's not been discussed in the text? The text is not so extreme about this particular method itself. The text has to be extreme to use such an extreme word in the correct option. I'm going to eliminate this option simply because this is a very extreme option. I don't like the word most over here because the text was not using any such extreme terminology. As simple as that. Let's go to C now. As a filmmaker, Y has long supported the designs of conceptual artists such as Jins and A. Now, the text did mention this person, Yamaoka. Now, what do we know about this person from this particular text? We know that this person lived for 4 years in this impractical space and this person reported significant health benefits because of living in that space. That is all I know. Do I know if this person was supporting such designs or not earlier? I don't know anything about that. So he has long supported the designs of conceptual artists. I don't know if he has been doing this for a very long time. All I know is that this person stayed in that impractical space for 4 years and reported some health benefits. But whether he supported such kind of conceptual artists or not earlier, I have no clue about this. The text is not giving me any information about this. So this is out of scope. This is not discussed in the text at all. Let's go to D now. This is the only option that you're left with, so this has to be the correct option. But anyways, let's just read this. Although impractical, yes, the space is called as impractical in the whole text. Anyways, the design of the apartment building by James and A may improve the well-being of the building's residents. Now, look at this word may. This is not extreme like most, and it's using a very safe word, that is may. There's a possibility of seeing improvement in the well-being of the building's residents because we did see such an improvement for this person, Nobu. Right? So that's the central idea, living in an impractical space is fanciful, not functional, but there are positive benefits related to this, and there is a chance of seeing such positive benefits in those buildings' residents as well. Right? So very clearly we have the correct option. We could eliminate options over here because of being extreme and because of being irrelevant or out of context or out of scope related to the text. Now with this, we will be moving on to a higher difficulty level question. Let's go ahead and take that one. Alright, so we are taking up a high difficulty level question now. And the question stem says main idea, which means it's a central idea question type. So let's read the text. Several scholars have argued that conditions in England in the late 9th through early 11th centuries, there's a dash here, there's another dash here, so this is extra information. Let's read ahead. Were especially conducive to the production of the Old English epic poem B. Okay, let's take a pause here. Now, what are they really talking about? They're talking about the conditions in England in this particular time frame, late 9th through early 11th centuries. It resulted into the building up of this epic poem B, production of this particular poem B. And they have dated the poem's composition accordingly. Because of these conditions that they found in this particular time frame, they have dated the composition of this poem accordingly, right? That is in this particular time frame. It is not inconceivable that B emerged from such a context, but, so take a pause, all right? This is a contradictory word. Something is changing. I mean, as per the context, it seems fine to date this poem's composition as late 9th century, early 11th century. But privileging contextual fit over the linguistic evidence of an 8th or 7th century composition requires a level of justification that thus far has not been presented. This means that while it might make sense to link B to the late 9th or 11th centuries, based on the context, the linguistic evidence points to an even earlier composition, possibly in the 8th or 7th century. Right? The scholars who prefer the later dating have not yet justified why they disregarded the linguistic evidence in favor of historical context. This is what the text is about. Now, if you see in an overall manner, this text is primarily discussing the dating of B and the debate between using contextual evidence versus linguistic evidence. This is the main crux. The moment you start getting into the depth of everything that's been given into this text, you will get confused because they have used difficult language. They have used a lot of words to explain this. To try and focus in the overall sentence meaning, try and take away the overall sentence meaning rather than getting into the details of everything. Now, with this understanding, we are going to look at the options and start eliminating them. Okay, now look at the options over here. They all are very lengthy, so you can always divide your options into two parts and see how you can eliminate your options, right? Let's read the first one. Although there are some grounds for believing that B was composed between the late 9th and early 11th centuries. There was nothing wrong in the first part of it, so I can read ahead and see if there's something wrong here. Advocates for that view tend to rely on evidence that has been called into question by advocates for an earlier date. Now, there's something that's very tricky in this option. This option is going to be very tricky. The moment you read this, you might feel like this is the correct option, but actually this is not correct, this is incorrect. It's wrong because the passage says that scholars who date the poem to the late 9th to early 11th centuries haven't considered the linguistic evidence suggesting the poem might have been written earlier. It doesn't say that the evidence for the later date is unreliable or that anyone has doubted it. The passage just says that there's more evidence for an earlier date that these scholars should take into account. So there is no calling into question the evidence that exists right now. Right? This is the tricky part, guys. Be very careful of such tricky wordings in your options. This may look very convincing, but this is incorrect because it is saying that the scholars called into question the proofs that we have right now. So A is out because of that. Let's look at B now. Although several scholars have dated B to the late 9th through early 11th centuries, others have argued that doing so privileges a controversial interpretation of the social conditions of the period. Now, understand, choice B is wrong because the passage doesn't mention any controversy about the social conditions of the period. So the mention of social conditions in this particular option is making this option incorrect. It just says that scholars who support the late 9th to early 11th century date haven't addressed the linguistic evidence for an earlier date. So this is out because there's no mention of social conditions. So you can say this is out of context. Let's look at C now. Although B fits well with the historical context of England in the late 9th to early 11th centuries, again, nothing wrong in the first part, it fits equally well with the historical context of England in the 7th and 8th centuries. Now, the second part is making this option go incorrect. Why? Because the text doesn't talk about how well B fits the historical context of both the 7th and 8th centuries. Instead, the text only mentioned that linguistic evidence points to a possible earlier composition, but doesn't make any claims about how well it fits into earlier historical context, right? So it's not about the historical context of this century, it's more about the linguistic context. So this is basically contradicting the text. It's mixing up the two things. Let's look at D now. Although the claim of a late 9th through early 11th century composition date for bees has some plausibility, advocates for the claim have not compellingly addressed evidence suggesting an earlier date. Now, this is exactly what we have been saying till now. Option D is definitely the correct choice because the text mentions that scholars have reasonably dated B to this period due to the favorable historical conditions. This suggests that late date is plausible. The text points out that linguistic evidence supports an earlier composition, that is 8th or 7th century. But those advocating for the later date haven't effectively addressed or justified why they privilege historical context over linguistic evidence, right? This is the whole problem in the text. With this, we understand that we can pick up choice D and we can eliminate options on the basis of being out of context or contradictory to the text, right? Alright, so now that you know the exact steps to crush the central idea question type on the digital ST, you are already ahead of the game. Remember, understanding the central idea is key to unlocking the entire text, and now you have the tools to do just that. Stay confident, practice smart, and this will soon become your favorite question type.